Blimey, mate. The 2026 Miami Grand Prix just proved the old guard is crumbling. Welcome to the paddock vault, where we dissect the weekend. The rookies made the veterans look like amateurs.
Oh, it was absolute carnage, wasn't it?
Completely. And before we unpack this absolute chaos, pit in for a subscribe and give us the green light by hitting like. Tell us in the comments, are Verstappen and Leclerc officially past their prime?
That is the big question right now, isn't it? I mean, looking through the stack of telemetry and the post-race briefings we've been analyzing for this deep dive, one thing is just glaringly obvious.
Yeah, the dynamic has completely shifted. I mean, we're going to break down exactly how a 19-year-old rookie, Kimi Antonelli, didn't just, scrape a win together, but completely outclassed the established elite.
And we aren't just talking about a fast driver having a lucky Sunday. This is a fundamental changing of the guard. We're looking at raw pace, some truly unprecedented weather chaos, and this is key, an absolute tactical masterclass from the Mercedes pit wall.
Right. But to understand Antonelli's historic Sunday, where he claims his third consecutive pole-to-win conversion, by the way, which is just mental, we have to actually start with Saturday's sprint race.
We do, yeah, because Saturday was a massive misdirection.
Exactly, because if you only watch the sprint, the established names looked absolutely untouchable. Lando Norris takes pole for that 19-lap sprint and just converts it into this beautifully controlled victory for McLaren.
His first win of the 2026 season, mind you.
Yeah, and Oscar Piastri holds off Ferrari's Charles Leclerc to secure a McLaren 1-2. So if you're just glancing at the timing screens, it looks like the papaya cars have the whole weekend in a vice grip.
Oh, without a doubt. And meanwhile, Mercedes looks, well, entirely lost. I mean, Antonelli drops from second down to fourth, right off the line.
Right, he gets completely bogged down.
Yeah, and then he's stuck in this really scrappy, prolonged battle with his teammate, George Russell. He pushes way too hard, cops a 5-second penalty for a track limits violation, and officially gets demoted down to 6th place.
Exactly. Which on paper, looks like a teenager buckling under the weight of expectation. But here's where I want to push back a bit, or at least look at the analogy here. Was that sprint race just a glorified reconnaissance lap for Mercedes? Because the telemetry you brought in tells a very different story.
It does. It really does. Mercedes wasn't falling apart at all. When you dig into the lap times, Antonelli's raw pace and dirty air was staggering.
So they were essentially running a 19-lap test session.
Spot on. They used the sprint to gather pure telemetry on ride heights and suspension stiffness, because the physics of these 2026 cars makes that data incredibly critical.
Because of the dirty air, right?
Exactly. When you're following another car, you're driving through that turbulent, disrupted airflow, which drastically reduces your aerodynamic downforce.
And to compensate for losing that aero grip, the driver has to lean heavily on the mechanical grip of the tires.
Yes, which overheats them. Mercedes knew Antonelli was trapped in dirty air behind Russell, so instead of panicking about the sprint result, the engineers on the pit wall just sat back and watched how the suspension handled the curbs under that very specific thermal load.
So they realized the car was bottoming out too harshly on the long straights?
Precisely. They sacrifice the sprint, take all that lovely data, and completely re-engineer Antonelli's mechanical setup overnight. And his raw pace, despite the issues, was an ominous warning sign for the rest of the paddock.
Which leads us straight into qualifying, where that data gathering paid off massively. I mean, transformed is an understatement. Antonelli storms to pole position with a 1.27.798.
A massive lap.
Unbelievable. He beats Max Verstappen by over 1/10 of a second, with Leclerc in third. And the real kicker, Antonelli didn't even need to improve on his final Q3 lap.
No, he didn't. His first run on fresh, soft tires was that dominant. It was a psychological blow just as much as a technical one. He essentially laid down a marker that forced the veterans to overdrive their cars just to get close to him.
But just as the grid is set and the strategies are locked in, Mother Nature decides to throw a massive spanner in the works.
Oh, absolute chaos.
The weather in Miami went completely dodgy. The FIA actually declared a rain hazard, and the race start was moved up a full 3 hours.
From 4 p.m. local time to 1 p.m. I've never seen the paddock in such a state of panic trying to reschedule everything.
But they had no alternative, did they? Because of the specific meteorological threat, heavy thunderstorms and lightning, which triggers the FIA's 30-30 rule.
Right.
Can you break down the logistics of that rule for the folks listening? Because it fundamentally alters how a race weekend operates.
Yeah, it's a non-negotiable safety protocol. Basically, you calculate the proximity of a storm by measuring the time between a lightning flash and the sound of thunder.
Like counting seconds in your head.
Exactly. And if there's less than 30 seconds between the two, it means the lightning is striking within a 6-mile radius of the circuit. The moment that threshold is crossed, every single track worker, marshal, camera operator, and official must seek shelter immediately for 30 minutes.
And if there's another strike within that 6-mile radius?
The 30-minute clock completely resets.
Wow. So a rolling thunderstorm at 4 p.m. wouldn't just delay the race, it would practically cancel it.
Absolutely. You lose your global broadcast window, the daylight fades, and the logistics just collapse. Moving the race to 1 p.m. was literally the only way to guarantee the Grand Prix actually happened.
But moving a race up 3 hours isn't just a scheduling headache for the broadcasters. It completely rewrites the engineering parameters of the event. At 1 p.m., under that heavy, ominous cloud cover, the track temperature plummeted by 16 degrees compared to the scorching heat of the sprint race.
16 degrees. 16 degrees of track temperature is an absolute eternity in Formula One. These Pirelli tires operate on a razor's edge. The polymers in the rubber are designed to become sticky and provide that optimal mechanical grip only within a very specific high-temperature window.
So all that beautiful, meticulous data that McLaren and Mercedes gathered on Saturday.
Suddenly useless. Completely out the window. When the track is 16 degrees cooler, the tire rubber stays rigid. It doesn't bite into the microabrasions of the asphalt.
It just slides.
It just slides. And when a cold tire slides laterally across the track surface, it tears small pieces of rubber off the tire itself. It's a phenomenon called graining. It ruins your traction and absolutely destroys your lap times.
Which perfectly explains the tire selection at the start of the race. The hard compound would take, what, 10 laps just to warm that?
At least 10. And the softs would grain and fall apart within 5 laps. So it forced almost the entire grid onto the medium compound tires.
So picture this. Everyone is heading into turn 1 on cold asphalt with tires that simply do not want to switch on and far less grip than they anticipated, which leads us perfectly into the sheer carnage of the opening laps.
Absolute madness.
Antonelli is sitting on pole, but when the lights go out, he bogs down heavily. The cold mediums just don't give him the traction feeds he needs, and Verstappen and Leclerc immediately pull alongside him.
The opening stint was frantic. We saw 5 different drivers trade the lead, which is practically unheard of around the Miami street circuit.
It really is.
But this is where the dynamic really shifts. The lack of grip, combined with the pressure of a teenager breathing down their necks, actually caused the established veterans to crack.
Look at Max Verstappen on lap 1. Coming out of turn 2, he applies too much throttle on those cold mediums, completely loses the rear end, and spins a full 360 degrees right in the middle of the pack.
Which is terrifying. He saved it. He kept the car out of the wall and the engine running, which is a massive testament to his reflexes.
Right, he kept it out of the wall, sure. But I have to challenge this a bit. A 360-degree spin on lap 1 from the reigning world champion isn't just a blip. When you're losing aerodynamic downforce behind other cars, and your tires are stone cold, mashing the throttle like that is asking the car to do something physics simply won't allow.
No, it won't.
So is Max's car control supernatural for not hitting the wall? Or is that spin a sign that he's starting to overdrive the car because he's terrified of a 19-year-old in Mercedes?
I have to say, the telemetry certainly suggests panic. Verstappen knows that if Antonelli gets clean air at the front of the pack, the race is practically over.
Yeah.
When you are so accustomed to dominating and suddenly a rookie is pulling tenths of a second on you in the corners, the human instinct is to compensate by getting on the throttle a fraction of a second earlier. But on a cold track with rigid tires, that torque immediately snaps the rear axle. It was an unforced error born purely from desperation.
And that desperation was a massive theme of the day. The chaos wasn't just confined to the front row either. On lap 6, we get a safety car deployed for a genuinely terrifying crash. Isaac Hadjar breaks his suspension entirely on the barrier, and Liam Lawson clips Pierre Gasly at turn 17.
Oh, that was a nasty one.
The geometry of the contact literally flips Gasly's Alpine completely upside down.
It's always chilling to see a car inverted like that. Thankfully, the Halo did its job immaculately, and both drivers walked away unharmed. But from a strategic standpoint, that safety car deployment flipped the entire race on its head.
Because it bunched the pack up. But more importantly, it forced the drivers to run at significantly reduced speeds for several laps.
Exactly. Which means the tires, which were already struggling to generate heat on a cold track, cool down even further.
The tire pressures just drop off a cliff.
They do. So when the safety car finally pulls in racing resumes, the grip levels are even worse than they were at the race start.
So at this point, Antonelli had lost the lead in the early chaos, Norris is looking incredibly strong in the McLaren, but this is where the Mercedes pit wall proves they aren't just fast. They are tactically ruthless.
Oh, brilliant strategy.
Let's break down the strategy that actually won them the race.
Yeah.
The undercut. Because it was an absolute masterclass.
The undercut was exceptionally powerful in Miami, specifically because of that massive track temperature drop. So Antonelli is tucked in behind Norris, who has track position. The pit stop window opens. Russell pits on lap 21. Leclerc pits on 22. But Mercedes, they keep Antonelli out until lap 27.
Which raises the question, why lap 27? Why not earlier to cover off the Ferrari?
Well, it comes down to calculating the precise rate of tire degradation. So for the beginners listening, think of your tire's grip like a leaking bucket. Every lap you drive, you're losing a few tenths of a second of pace as the rubber wears down.
Right.
The undercut is simply swapping your empty bucket for a full, exactly one lap before your rival does.
But it's not just about having fresh rubber, is it? It's about the delta. The speed difference between the new tire and the dying tire on that freezing cold track.
Precisely. Mercedes waited for the exact moment when Norris's medium tires hit the cliff. That's the point where the rubber degrades so much that lap times just fall off a precipice. By lap 27, Norris was absolutely hemorrhaging time. So Mercedes boxes Antonelli. He gets a fresh set of hard tires.
And he comes out and immediately drives the outlap of his life.
He had to, because he has all that new grip, while Norris is forced to complete lap 28 on tires that are effectively bald. It's like taking a shortcut while your rival is stuck in mud. Even though Antonelli had to navigate the pit lane, his speed on that fresh rubber during his outlap was so immense that it erased Norris's entire lead.
So by the time Norris finally pits on lap 28 and blends back onto the circuit, Antonelli has already used that extra grip to surge past him at racing speed. It's a mathematical ambush.
It really is. And Norris knew it immediately. He came on the team radio, and you could just hear the sheer resignation in his voice. He said, "We got undercut, no excuses. We should have boxed first."
Wow.
McLaren had the raw pace all weekend, but Mercedes completely outsmarted them tactically. They forced McLaren to blink.
And that execution under pressure completely broke the spirit of the opposition, which really sets the stage for the final laps of the Grand Prix. Because this underlying clash between the new generation and the veterans reaches its absolute climax here.
It does.
Oscar Piastri in the second McLaren is absolutely flying. On lap 49, he hunts down Max Verstappen.
And Verstappen is on the radio complaining that his battery is completely depleted. He has absolutely no electrical deployment left to defend himself on the long straights.
Let's explain why that happened to Verstappen, because it goes right back to the dirty air we talked about earlier. Formula One cars harvest energy under braking using the MGU cabin.
Right, the kinetic motor generator unit. It takes the energy generated by rear brakes and stores it in the battery. But when you spend your entire stint closely following another car in dirty air, you actually have less aerodynamic drag.
Right.
Less drag means you are arriving at the corner faster, but ironically, because you lack downforce, you can't brake as hard or as late.
Oh, so your braking zones completely change and therefore you harvest less energy.
Exactly. Verstappen spent the entire race overcompensating for his lap one spin, fighting through turbulent air, and constantly deploying his electrical energy to try and make up ground.
So by lap 49, the battery is just flat.
Completely flat. He is a sitting duck. Piastri just sails right past him.
Then, on lap 56, Piastri catches Charles Leclerc.
And this, I think, was the definitive moment for the old guard. Leclerc sees Piastri filling his mirrors. Leclerc knows the Ferrari doesn't have the ultimate pace to defend, but pride dictates he refuses to yield.
Right, he's not just going to roll over. He tries to respond to Piastri's pressure through the sweeping sections, asks just a fraction too much of the Ferrari's rear end, and suffers sudden snap oversteer.
He spins entirely on his own and clips the barrier. I mean, the damage is severe enough that he's limping to the finish line, which allows both George Russell and Max Verstappen to overtake his wounded car on the final straight.
An absolutely devastating unforced error.
It really was.
Which brings us to the final classification. Kimi Antonelli crosses the line to win the Miami Grand Prix, and in doing so, he becomes the first driver in the entire 76-year history of Formula One to convert his first 3 career pole positions into 3 consecutive victories.
Just think about the names who never achieved that. Senna, Schumacher, Hamilton, Verstappen. Antonelli has placed himself in a statistical category of 1.
And look at the podium. Antonelli, Norris, and Piastri. It is a purely new generation podium. Contrast that with the legends of the sport. Verstappen finishes 5th, out of battery and out of ideas. Leclerc finishes 6th after binning it into a wall. Lewis Hamilton crosses the line a distant 7th, and Fernando Alonso is mired all the way down in 15th.
The contrast in composure out there was just staggering. The younger drivers were analytical, hitting their apexes, managing their tire temperatures, and truly trusting the mathematics of their pit walls.
While the veterans looked thoroughly rattled, they were overdriving the machinery, mismanaging their hybrid systems, and frankly, making rookie mistakes. It's a complete role reversal.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for you as the listener tracking this season? If we pull back and look at the big picture of the data you provided, the 2026 Miami Grand Prix wasn't just a race. It was an execution.
Absolutely.
We watched a 19-year-old dictate terms to the entire paddock, while the men who have defined the last decade of this sport were left spinning out and complaining on the radio.
The raw speed of this youth movement is no longer just potential, is it? It is actualized, undeniable dominance. They aren't just fast. They are tactically mature enough to handle 16-degree temperature drops, safety car restarts, and the intense psychological warfare of a world championship battle.
Which leaves you with this absolute firecracker of a question to mull over. Based on the raw panic we saw from the veterans today, are we witnessing the end of the Verstappen and Hamilton eras? Have they been completely outclassed by the Antonelli generation?
It's definitely something to think about as you review the rest of your data.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in to the Paddock Vault. Keep your tires warm, and we'll see you at the next Grand Prix.